Mark, you did a deep dive kind of on how the United sphere, but especially specifically the club, I think, how they're welcoming Jim Ratcliffe's imminent arrival. Not there yet, obviously, needs to be rubber stamped, pass the fit and proper persons test, which we presume he will. And in the process, you found out that there was a lot of things at Manchester United, not just on the playing side, which is well documented, but sort of across the club that needed investment, needed touch-ups, and they hope that Ratcliffe could bring it.
Yeah, so I wanted to do a piece about life under the Glazers, and we all know about the football side of it, how it's declined over the last 10 years and all sorts of issues with the debt, but I wanted to know about what it's like to work for the Glazers, and because I've been told stories over the years about how they've cut this back and done this and done strange things, which you hear them at the time, you think, that can't be right, really? So I just thought, well, I'll spend a bit of time investigating, speaking to people just to find out what it really is like at Old Trafford, working for the Glazers. And the stories that I was told were probably more surprising than I imagined. It's a real shame that the club has gone the way it has, but one thing I can say is that when Jim Ratcliffe did his speech to staff at the start of this month, people came out of there telling me they felt 10 foot tall because they were, first of all, they had the owner who, one of the senior figures was actually there conversing with them, telling them that they were important and telling them primarily, I'm not here to make money, we're here to win. And they haven't heard that message for 20 years.
I was really struck by one message, or one of the quotes, one of the people you spoke to said, I had never been in the same room with any of the Glazers, and I'm assuming this must have been quite a senior person, not like the guy from the car park. I thought that was remarkable and kind of underscores the distance between ownership. Mm-hmm. Now, and even Ed Woodward, who obviously was there a long time, even before he was in his role, how there seemed to be this kind of resentment or this distance towards him because he spent a lot of time in London cutting deals and stuff like that for the club. And did it feel? I got the impression it felt a bit rudderless, a bit distant.
The messages that I got were that when David Gill was at the chief exec, David Gill was around the club, he knew people and he was personable. And to a certain extent, when Richard Arnold replaced Ed, he would base himself at the club. But much of Ed's time was spent in the Mayfair offices, like you said, doing deals. And there was a sense that all the people at United were doing, all the staff that you don't see, the people who work at Old Trafford, was basically serving the Glazers, not serving Man United, doing things for the Glazers, trying to reach social media targets in terms of likes and impressions. There was never a sense that what they are doing today will impact in a positive way the football team, which is ultimately Man United are a football club. And as we've seen over the last 10 years...
They're a football club. They're listed on the stock exchange. They're a business.
They are, but...
Okay, I'm joking. I'm joking!
But primarily, what happens on the pitch dictates what happens off the pitch and vice versa. And for too long, the people at United have felt that they are basically being used as a tool to help the Glazers get richer. And we've seen that with the money they've taken out. Yeah,
I think the figure is, over the years, more than $1 billion in combination of dividends and interest that's been taken out. And nobody who thinks sport is to some degree business have an issue with owners taking dividends, taking money. That's their profit. That's their capital that they put at risk. Although obviously in this case, it was their capital. And then of course they borrowed against the club and then put the debt on the club. But over the last 3-4 years, United have not been profitable.
No.
And I think that is the big, that's the big distinction. And you write in your piece, you say like there's a sense of decline and drift that people say started with Sir Alex's departure, but you go further than that. You say, you pinpoint it in 2009.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the sale of Cristiano Ronaldo to Real Madrid, £80 million. Ronaldo went. Carlos Tevez also left the club that summer. They didn't do a deal to sign him from his economic rights holders, MSI. He went to Man City. So they lost two crucial players that summer, and they basically replaced them with, I think, Antonio Valencia, Gabby Overton, a free transfer in Michael Owen, and Mambaram Diouf. Low-level signings. They didn't really invest that money. And that was at the time, without boring our viewers, when after the financial crash in 2007-8, the Glazers really struggled to pay their loans. They took out a really high interest loan. And they always denied at the time, they still denied that they used the Ronaldo fee to pay down the loans, but the Ronaldo fee wasn't reinvested into the team. Over the years that followed, it was invested in mid-range players at best, shall we say. Bebe, Phil Jones, Ashley Young, Chris Smalling, Chicharito, players at the time Man City were spending much more on players who became Premier League legends, David Silva, Yaya Toure. So the decline, I think, started in 2009. Sir Alex Ferguson did a great job for the next 4 years keeping them competitive. But as soon as he left, that was when the problem started, because the genius that kept it all together had gone, and it was left with inexperience in the dugout and inexperience in the boardroom, and naivety in both places as well.
So I'm fascinated by another point that came up when you touched upon this briefly about, chasing clicks and likes and metrics and followers around the world. I get it. Social media is very important in brand building and all this stuff. But I also think that a lot of these brand builders and marketers are kind of BS merchants in the sense that, yes, you can monetize it, but to what degree and what is the opportunity cost for monetizing it? And, when I was reading in your piece about how that seemed to be an obsession to still be the most clicked, most followed club in the world, doesn't really help you if people are following you to tell you how rubbish you've become since Sir Alex left.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, some of the boasts about how many Google searches were made when Radamel Falcao signed on loan for Monaco in 2014 means nothing. But they use that to show potential sponsors and partners that look how many eyeballs look at Man United. So this is why you need to sponsor Man United. And it's just the wrong metric. I'm pretty sure that Man City and Liverpool have similar operations, but that isn't the be all and end all. It just felt, listening to people, that they were just exasperated with working for a club that only wanted to deal with the financial side and the commercial gain, and the football side was just way down the list of priorities.
At the same time, if you choose to be a smart businessman and squeeze as much as you can out of the club, that's, like I said, that's your prerogative. That's the reality. Depending on your view of football, you may be entitled to do that. But I was also struck by some of the smoke and mirror stuff that they bought into. We mentioned the social thing. The other thing is this business with the augmented reality. Now, a few years ago, people were going on Web 3.0, augmented reality. Look, I can play the game through Aaron Wan-Bissaka's eyes. I don't know if they put like a chip in his head, and which is fantastic. And then you can monetize this, right? But I also think it would get really old really, really quickly. That there's a legal whole minefield, because the Premier League says, well, that's great. If Aaron Wan-Bissaka is playing in, who owns what where Aaron Wan-Bissaka sees?
Yeah.
And thirdly, the gimmick would kind of go away pretty soon. Like, people might get bored of it. And yet the thinking is they got really excited about that.
Yeah, well, I was told that by somebody who works at the club, and I actually put it to Ed Woodward for clarification, and Ed said, absolutely, we thought it was a huge opportunity, were his words, that, again, they could monetize it. But you're right. I mean, would the Premier League allow clubs to strike their own AR deals? Probably not. There'd be pushback on that, because I guess that Man United could drive a much bigger one than, say, Fulham. So that's a bit of an unfair element in United's favour. But you're right. I mean, it's, who would want to pay to watch Anthony Martial's 90 minutes? Doesn't really stack up. But United's view, I'd imagine, was that they have so many fans all over the world, certainly in populated regions, the Far East, that they think they could really capture on this. But again, I think that for me, that kind of pointed to, in many ways, the genius of the Glazers and Ed Woodward, in the sense that they have grown the commercial brand of United over the years. But from a football perspective, it's nonsense. It really is.
There's other little nuggets in there, which I guess are kind of humorous and kind of anecdotal.
Yeah.
But you stood them up. One is this business with painting the football club. Now, Manchester United, clubs are identified with colors. Manchester United's dominant color, I think, is red, yes, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely.
But it's a certain kind of red.
Yeah.
Or it was.
So a couple of years ago, when it was clear that Old Trafford was showing signs of wear and tear, that the stadium was painted. Now, I'm not saying this was Joel and Avram Glazer went to the local hardware store to pick the paint, but we do know from this piece that they do micromanage. Anyway, the point was made to me that when Sir Alex was manager, he had an obsession that United played in a darker shade of red than Liverpool. It was just one of his things. And when Nike were making the kits, they had a shade of red purely for United called Diablo Red. So they painted the stadium a couple of years ago, and I was told that it's the wrong red. It's not Diablo Red, but it's not Man United, but it's too bright. It's Liverpool Red. So the red is red, like you say, take your pick. But anyone that goes by Old Trafford will notice that this very bright red is glaring at you, and it's a different shade of red than they used to paint the stadium, put it that way. I spoke to United, and they said, the United view is that it's red, but like you said, there's various different palettes and shades, but it's not Diablo red.
I watched an extremely, you know how on YouTube you can go down the rabbit hole of weird videos. I watched, I think it was a Wall Street Journal, one of those instructional videos or educational videos where they told you about like people who actually license like the official color palettes and stuff. And yes, it is a thing. It is a noticeable different color. You weren't able to stand up the fact that Diablo red maybe was marginally more expensive than bog standard generic red that they got at Crown Paints or whatever.
All I was told was it's red. So, you know, anyone that drives past Old Trafford or looks at a picture of Old Trafford, you can make your own mind up, but it's a very... I've never really noticed this before. Well, having been told it, you look at Liverpool's kit and United's kit, and even Arsenal's kit, they all have different shades of red, and it's just United is more of a scarlet red, I guess, but yeah, it's probably the wrong red.
One other, again, since we're pulling out of context nuggets, but they're still nuggets, they still help paint a picture. And this is more Glazer specific, but when they went on tour in the US or elsewhere, they had somebody fly out to whatever hotel they were staying in ahead of time to make sure that the sheets in their hotel room had been washed with a certain type of detergent.
Yeah, this was one of the US tours, and somebody fairly senior was taken off their role to get ahead of the team, a day ahead of the team, just to make sure everything was in order, as you say, for the Glazer and the family. Because I've been on these summer tours, and it's not just Avi and Joel. It really is the whole Glazers. The kids, the siblings, the wives.
But Darcy shows up too.
Never seen Darcy, I've got to say, but there are a lot of them at games, and they are generally quite pleasant people, but not that you can actually converse. Right. They seem quite pleasant, but yeah, somebody was taken off their role to make sure that was the case. And other instances of, staff being called at 3 o'clock in the morning to go out and get some cupcakes for the Glazers kids or get a certain juice.
Why are the kids up at 3 o'clock in the morning?
Probably too much sugar, too many cupcakes.
But this thing about the sheets really, really gets me. And okay, I know people who when they travel, they're very particular about their sheets. And what they do is they own a set of sheets and they send it ahead of time to the hotel. If you stay in nice hotels, people who do that generally stay in nice hotels, and those nice hotels will do that. They're not staying at the motel by the motorway. So while I don't do it personally, I can understand if you used to high thread count special sheets or maybe you're allergic to something and whatever. I would understand that. I don't understand somebody sending somebody ahead to go and check what detergent the sheet. I don't even know, how do you even do that? Do they send them ahead of time to the hotel's laundry service to go and spy on them?
Yeah, I guess if that's your role, you have to
do the chemical reaction on the...
Speak to the hotel manager, make sure that they've got a checklist of. I'm not sure this person went into the laundry to with their actual detergent, but to make sure that certain things are taken care of. Listen, I guess that happens at that level of wealth and level of status. You own Man United, you're a billionaire. I guess you can call the shots.
But surely it would be cheaper to send your own sheets to the hotel and have them make up the sheets and bedding and pillowcases with that, right? Hotels will do that.
Yeah, maybe the shipping costs were too much for the Glazers and it was cheaper to get a bottle of detergent. I don't know.
But you're sending the dude so you can just have him have the sheet. All right, okay, all right. No, I'm getting too granular in this. I don't just want to make this about having a pop on the Glazers and the way United were run, because the Glazers are still there.
Yeah.
Jim Ratcliffe is going to have a role. As we understand, he's going to have a role in the football side. He'll own a quarter of the club. But there were reports that he's also going to interact with the business side. So presumably there would be some investment. My question, and I think you don't necessarily get into it in the piece, so I don't want to put you on the spot, but is there a concern that him showing up saying, I'm here to win and everything, means that he's just going to focus on the football side, and on the business side, we're still going to have these little details, dysfunctionalities, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, there are obvious pinch points ahead, which could be a point of conflict, if the Glazers run the commercial side and Ratcliffe runs the football side, then commercial and football do tend to clash, certainly in the summer when they go on these pre-season tours and, you know, they have to go to places where they wouldn't normally go because of commercial impacts. But one thing I was told as well within this piece is that Sir Jim made it clear to the staff that they were as much an important part of the team as the players. You know, that if they felt better and optimistic about their job, then it would rub off on the team. So I guess that's crossing a lane into something that the Glazers would control, because the staff at Old Trafford aren't really people connected to the football side. But I think Sir Jim Ratcliffe thinks that the whole element of the club, every part of the club has to work together, whether it's commercial, whether it's corporate, whether it's the football team, to make sure that the football team wins again. And I guess it's just a case of making people feel more valued, making people feel that there's a plan, that there's proper leadership. And if he can give that impression, then if everyone feels 10% better going to work, it will ultimately rub off on the footballers.
One final thing on this: there were reports that, you know, United have more than 1,000 employees, right? Yeah. Which actually makes them considerably bigger than Liverpool, City, Arsenal, and you know, their peer clubs. And there were reports that there would be cuts because some of those are redundant. What's your assessment about how, I mean, you can come in and say those things, say what people want to hear, but ultimately, if you want to try to find these efficiencies, especially when you've lost money really for the first time in more than 20 years, how confident are you that you can kind of thread that needle and not attract more negativity?
Yeah, I mean, again, there was a sense that it is a bloated workforce, but in some areas it's bloated, in other areas it's understaffed. So it's a case of maybe realigning that and making sure that the areas that need reinforcements get it, and the areas that have got too many people are dealt with. You know, it's not going to be an easy ride for Sir Jim Ratcliffe. It's not going to be, you know, stress-free from this point on. There are going to be big decisions to make, and I think, from what I'm told, is that he will make them, and he accepts that there will be decisions that will be unpopular internally and externally with the supporters. But he's a guy that's a self-made multi-billionaire, so he's made tough decisions in his life, and I guess that it'd be naive to expect him to just go to United and slap people on the back and say it's going to be great. There are going to be you know, forks in the road, but I think after 20 years of Glazer ownership, I think that the people that work at the club are just desperate for a change of direction and a change in morale, really.